Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. We'll wait 2-3 minutes. Good evening. 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 What is the exact meaning of Sir in Sir Charles Wood? The British used to give titles. This Sir is a title given by the Crown or the British Parliament. So till today, you can be called an OBE. An OBE gets a Sir, Officer of the British Empire. So OBE is a title which is still today given. So for example, David Beckham, you saw, he was moving around. He's actually Sir David Beckham. He is an OBE, Officer of the British Empire. Sardar is not something which the British used to give. Yeah, same way Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. OBE, the Officer of the British Empire. So Education Commission is pre-oriented. Yeah. If there's a mains question, I've given you enough information also. Shreyas, in a way, but world history still is an issue. So you would have to look for something for world history. Downward filtration is uh, that there is no one Shreyas. For optional history, you would have to go for 3-4 books. KK Reddy is one, but it's okay. When we talk about downward filtration, is that you teach a strata and it will then percolate into the other stratas of the society. That is what is downward filtration. Not optional. Generally, GS level, my PPTs are enough. More than enough. I'll wait 2 more minutes because at least 20 of you are still absconding. Akash, let them. I'll wait for this. It does always takes 10 minutes for everybody to come in. And that is why waiting for 7 to 8 minutes. No issues, Tina. That is totally fine. I know that. I know that. I wasn't there also on that. Even the match is not that great. Of what I've seen in the breaks which I gave you, it's a difficult pitch. So I think Akash has said 223 for 8. 250 and we have a match in our hands. So let's see. I know that, Tina. I know that. I know that it's all also old, quite old. So let's see. Shreyas, not after. Please do not uh, cover optional after January, February, maximum February. Important thing. There will be. We will all out before 50 hours. Acha. When does the second inning start? What is the time? Yeah, ancient medieval art and culture is more interesting than equally interesting like this. So can we say British 6:30? I guess this innings will be over at 6 and 6:30. So I'll reward you with something. Don't worry. First 3-4 overs I'll let you see. Can we say British done many experiments after we? Yes, Pradeep. Proper experimentation happened. And it was all about experimentation only. Ancient medieval art and culture, I don't remember. When do I go? I've taken one batch of weekend ancient medieval art and culture. I think Samhita and all were part of that. For you, I don't know what is the period in which. Samhita and all were in that time. It was not, very soon only. It was, I think, 2 months back. But recently, I think maybe next year. I think. Deindustrialization has been done. Yes. I'll wait one more minute because I think the number is not increasing. I wait one more minute. December? I don't think so. Okay. So now what we have to cover is called constitutional development. So when we talk about British colonial history in India, we have total acts 1773, 1784, 1793, 1813, 1833, 1853, and thereafter you have 1858, 1861, 1892, 1909, 1919, 1935. So today what we have to cover are these. These are called the Company Acts, and this is Government of India Act 1858. Then Indian Council Act, and thereafter you have the the Montagu Chelmsford reforms, and last but not the least, the Government of India Act 1935. So these Indian Council Acts, this is called Morley Minto reforms, this is called Montagu Chelmsford reforms, and this is called the concept of what we call today as Government of India. This is the mini constitution on which everything is based. So very simply, the things which we cover here are more important for company rule, and this is for crown rule. It is through this that we get the governor general and viceroy, but we have to discuss that. Total acts, out of these, you will get 1 to 2 questions for sure. 1 to 2 questions for sure. Vivek, I've said twice, either you don't listen or you don't care, which is OBE means Officer of the British Empire, through which you get the sir. So either don't look at the match and look here and then ask me the question, don't twice. So stop it. I've said thrice now, I've answered you twice, and you're still asking me the same thing. Now, sir, no audio and video. Then how do you know that I'm saying and taking your name? Now, see, the East India Company is a joint stock company. And with joint stock company, we know one thing very, very clearly, that it is a private body. And being a private body, East India Company was never properly under the British, vis-a-vis the British Parliament. It's a private body. Now, British Parliament is a governmental, it's the state itself, and the East India Company only has taken a charter from them. Have only taken a charter. When will 1857 come? Let me next week. So between 1765 and 1773, the British have done 2 to 3 things. They have become a territorial power. They have also got Bengal Diwani rights. And they've also done one more thing, which is the famines of 1769 and 1770. Clive has led to a disaster, the London crash of East India Company stock. And if a private company has so much power, don't you think that there should be a little bit of regulation? Don't you think there should be a little bit of regulation? Because leaving it so much, they have killed one third of the population. They have taken a territorial power. They have crashed the stock market. So that is why the first act itself is called in 1773 the Regulating Act. Because now the East India Company was going out of hand. So now, first you need to understand what is the structure pre-1773. Pre-1773, in England, the court of directors are there. They are answerable to whom? Why stock crashed? Akash, I am not going to repeat the whole concept of the Clivian fiscal bubble, which we discussed yesterday. So they are answerable to whom? They are answerable to the shareholders. They are answerable to the shareholders because they are accountable to the shareholders because the shareholders have appointed them. And the charter only gives this company via the British Parliament or the Crown. It only gives them a monopoly. So all appointments here, here are done by the court of directors and the shareholders, and they operate in India. They operate in India via three governors. Via three governors. Governor of Madras, Governor of Bengal, and the Governor of Bombay. They all are equal to each other. And the most famous governor of Bengal, you already know, was Robert Clive, the first governor of Bengal. You don't need to know Madras and Bombay because more or less those positions were in a way also under Clive. So it was not fully defined, but these were separate positions itself. So in a way, Governor of Bengal, Madras, Bombay was the same at this point of time because Bombay and Madras had not fully come to them. And Bombay is also governed by the municipality there. Now, this is the structure. The appointments, they are appointed by Court of Directors, COD, cash on delivery, appointed by Court of Directors, COD, and they basically are East India Company officials. Anybody has any issue in this? Any issue in this? You have a private joint stock company. It has created a lot of issues. And this is the structure which exists, which is Court of Directors. Shareholders are accountable. Charter gives them power for sure, which is British Parliament Crown monopoly. The three governors are equal to each other in a way. And the COD is appointing everybody. And the shareholders are very simply the ones who dictate everything. So you have the charter coming from the British Parliament. You have the shareholders appointing the Court of Directors appointing everyone else. And the officials of all of them are considered the officials of the East India Company. Are we clear about this? People who said no, they don't understand. Is this clear? Yes? Okay. Now comes the Regulating Act of 1773. The British Parliament is basically already too annoyed by how the East India Company is operating in India. Famines have happened. There are multiple issues. So they don't change too much. Let me write it in the bottom. You have Regulating Act 1773. The first thing which they do is they ask the Court of Directors that you report to the British Parliament, send us reports of military, commercial, and political affairs. Which is that you tell us something. That what are you doing in India? or rather we'll say of India. Of Indian territories. And now the biggest change comes under the Court of Director. And the biggest change is that the Governor of Bengal has been redesignated as Governor General of Bengal. And the next most important thing is that now the Governor of Madras and the Governor of Bombay will report to the Governor General of Bengal, wherein there will be 4 members to assist the Governor General, and this is together called Governor General or Governor General in Council. In Council, wherein he is 1 plus 4 here, 1 plus 4 here. Another provision was that the Supreme Court should be established, and it was established in 1774. The Supreme Court will establish in 1774. But the most important act which has happened here, is the fact that this power dynamics is changed, and this is basically called legislative centralization, because there is a way of subordination. The Governor of Madras and the Governor of Bombay have been subordinated to the Bengal Governor General. So they are giving preference to which province? They're giving preference to which province? To Bengal. So what they have created is a very dangerous system in which all power is being pushed towards Bengal. And therefore, you have first Supreme Court, second Sanders report, third the Governor General's members, third, fourth, and fifth. 5 major changes which have been introduced. Now you will say, sir, how can I learn this? And I'll teach you coding, and maybe it will help you. For 1773, you can use the code 73 GGB plus 4 LCSC. In this code itself, all the provisions have been summarized, which is 1773 Governor General of Bengal, 4 members, legislative centralization, and SC, which is Supreme Court. If I read this out to you, it will be as follows. Governor of Bengal will be designated as Governor General of Bengal. First such person was no one else but Warren Hastings. Thereafter, You have Bombay, Madras Presidency governors subordinated to the Governor General, provided for Supreme Court, servants cannot take bribes, and the British government now wanted the company court of directors to report about revenue, civil, military affairs in India. So by just looking at this code, you can automatically understand what is the basic concept. From this structure, they went to this structure, and 5 major changes have been introduced. Are we clear about legislative centralization, what it means? Because that is the most technical term used in this whole discussion. Clear? Niranjan, you're saying no, then what is the issue? You have to say, what is the issue? Legislative centralization means going to one power. Legislative means law making. And this will keep on happening further. Legislative centralization in the Governor General of Bengal, coming from the Governor General. Previously, all three were together. Now they are having subordination. That is what we mean by legislative centralization. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Yes or no? Okay. This code is okay. LCSC, LCLC, whatever you want to write, you can write. That sequence can change. Okay. Now between 1773 and 1784, the British have fought certain wars. And in these wars, there are losses also. Why government regulating private company? Adil, I think you joined me right now, or you were there from the beginning. You joined me right now, or from the beginning itself? So then, when I discussed this with you, what were you thinking, or were you watching the match? That between the period of 1765 to 1773, territorial power, Bengal Diwani famine, and Clive has already crashed the stock market. So isn't it make sense that, for example, a company like Tata destroys the Indian economy? There's a need for regulation. Now a lot of people will wake up. That is the point. Now, between 1773 to 1789, 84, there have been wars, there have been losses also, and there have been multiple expenditure. But it's not their state. Meaning, what do you mean by that? And the prime minister becomes, his name is called Prime Minister Pitt the Younger. His father was also, Pitt the Elder was also official, but Pitt the Younger becomes the prime minister. And Pitt hates the way court of directors are independent. So that is why the 1784 regulation is called Pitt's India Act. 1784. Adil, waiting for your clarification. What do you mean by that? You will be stuck on that point only, and I'll move forward. Pitt is a person. Pitt. Pitt. His name is Pitt the Younger. Nahi. East India Company not destroying the British. Why famines in concern India? But they are generating revenue and they are crashing the London Stock Exchange. So isn't that of concern to the British? Is he the same Pitt from Pitt's India Act? अरे सब लोग सो रहे हो क्या? Are you all high? What is happening? I am saying that he is the person who is related to Pitt's India Act, and you are saying that he is the same person related to Pitt's India Act. What is happening? क्या हुआ? We lost the final. That you all are so lost, and or what has happened? Or you all are waking after the innings is over? What happened? Is he the same Pitt from Pitt's India Act? क्या हुआ? Can I concentrate? Because you are breaking the flow of others. Are we clear with regards to yes, this is the same Pitt as Pitt India? Okay, now Pitt's India Act 1784. Now Pitt's India Act 1784. Pitt hates how the East India Company is more or less independent. And he does not like the fact that the court of directors, in a way, if 5 people control so much power, is it a good thing? 5 people who are not answerable to the British Parliament are controlling everything. So what they do is that they, in England, change the structure. And what they do is that it becomes, they create a new body which is called Board of Control along with the Court of Directors. And what is ironic is that in the Board of Control, the officers or officials are appointed by the Parliament, and what is even more important is Board of Control and Court of Directors, their roles have been separated. They only look after the commercial side of East India Company, which is trade and commerce. And the Board of Control, it is responsible for administrative, political, military, revenue decisions, and powers. So which is a much stronger body. This is a much stronger body. Which is the more powerful body in these two? The Board of Control. So COD, cash on delivery, has now become literally only a commercial body. The Board of Control has now become the most important body, and now the Governor General in India will not report to one but two powers. The structure here remains the same. Governor of Bombay and Governor of Madras. But there's one more change, which is his council now has 3 members, not 4. So his now it's 1 plus 3, not so it has been reduced by 1. Council reduced by 1. So there are 2 major changes which happen, 1 and 2. But why would have they reduced 1 member in Governor General's Council? They've reduced it because now there's less chance of conflict. 1 plus 4 is 5. In 5, the Governor General can be dominated by 3 other members. Now it is 1 plus 3, 4 members. Now Governor General will either be in equal or in a better position. So basically, they have removed that 1 member because they wanted an even number so that the Governor General can always be dominant. So when we talk about Pitt's India Act, the code becomes 84 GGB plus 3 COD BOC. 84 GGB plus 3. This is Governor General Bengals plus 3 member and the concept of board of control. I beg you that please don't mix up, don't call it board of directors because court of directors is there. So are we clear about how there is governmental control over, in a way, indirect governmental control over the East India Company by now, this point? Yes? Let's read this out. Pitt's India Act. Orders of the board were binding on court of directors. Governor General has now 3 members. Separation of commercial and political functions of the company. They needed to solve this issue because William Pitt the Younger does not like the way the East India Company is very open and independent. And the biggest point is court of directors only deals with commercial affairs. How many ships are going to go? Is the trade happening or not? Basically useless things. And board of control basically is now going to have the Chancellor of Exchequer, which is again a British officer, Secretary of State, 4 members of Privy Council, meaning the council of the king himself, and controls as civil, military, political affairs and revenues. And the president of this board of control was Woods, Charles Wood, right? And that is why his dispatch was very, very important because his dispatch basically decides everything in India. Now, in 17th COD was reporting to British Parliament. No, it was only reporting to the British Parliament in reports. It was not reporting directly. It was just sending reports that, okay, this is the report, that this is what we are doing, this is what we are doing, this is what we're doing. Now, the Board of Control is literally having members of the East India Company removed and officers of the British Parliament sitting. So understand this point that this is a totally different understanding. Are we clear? Are we clear about this? Because then I want to go to the Charter Acts. No, there's no check and balance. It was just the British Parliament trying to understand what are they doing in India. Now they consolidate their control through BOC. Yes, in a way. In a way. Right? Okay. Now, if you remember, everybody is with me, please. This is very critical for your understanding, very important for the examination. If you don't follow, you tell me. I will repeat. Is the government had any shares in it? Most of the British MPs were only the shareholders also. How is BOC superior to COD? Okay, you tell me who is more powerful? Agriculture, I'll say, I'm not agriculture minister. Who is more powerful? The prime minister or the finance minister? So here the COD is basically the finance minister, only controls commerce. Everything else is with the board of control. So then isn't it that true? Why the council is reduced? Because if you have 5 members, then the governor general 1 plus 4. Governor general, if he gets only 1 vote, then 3 people are in agreement. So there's a chance that the Governor General gets challenged, and there was a cases where in which Governor General own decision was challenged. So they made it 1+3. There are 4, so that the Governor General either is in equal, or then either he is in agreement. Can we talk about charters? Okay. Now, if you remember that in 1600, the East India Company got a charter from the British Crown. Charter gave them monopoly in 2 areas, India and China. Now, in 1793, the charter had to be renewed because it was being renewed every 20 years. But the 1793 was significant because of the other changes also which happened with it. But more important is that if there are, for example, in the whole British economy, there are 7 lakh ships, which don't include the East India Company ships. And there are 70,000 ships of the East India Company. How many ships can operate in India and in China? How many ships? 70,000. Only 70,000 can do it because only East India Company ships can operate. 7 lakh ships can't. So, the first provision of 1793 was that both India and China monopoly have been retained. But that will not be true of the next charters. In between this period, 1793 and 1813, there rises two things. Listen to me now. First is a person who is the father of modern economics in that sense, who is called as who is that person? As controlled over China. Yes, Adam Smith. Adam Smith will write his book called The Wealth of Nations, and he will argue that state intervention into economy is not a good thing. State intervention into economy is not a good thing, and rather the role of the state should be as an invisible hand which is only there to support if needed. And basically, Adam Smith is the proponent of what we call as free trade or laissez-faire politics. So basically, between 1793 and 1813, first is that the free trade lobby in the British Parliament become very strong. And their argument is that this monopoly should not work. That this monopoly should not work. This monopoly makes no sense. And India should be free to trade. We should be free to trade in India and China also. But it is a second factor which basically induces the larger problem, which is that Napoleon, between 1804 and 1814, will start what is called the Napoleonic War. Under that, English trade was affected with Europe, because if Napoleon is fighting, Europe will not trade. Now, if I'm a trader sitting in the sidelines, I have no work because France is fighting. He's created the continental system in which I cannot go because I'll be shot or the Napoleon will seize my ship. And you see here an East India Company trader sit in his boat and go to India. Would you like it? Would you like it? Obviously, no. Now, based on this factor, there is so much pressure which is created on the parliament that in 1813, they remove the India Charter and only retain the China Charter. So now how many ships can operate in India? How many ships can operate in India? 7,70,000, meaning all of them. And how many ships can operate in China in 1813? Still 70,000. Still 70,000. And this lobby will become so powerful that in the 1833 charter, both monopolies will be gone and India will be open to trade along with China for everybody after 1833. So India monopoly goes in 1813 and China monopoly goes in 1833. In 1833. Can you remember these two aspects? Because this is a feature of the Charter Acts which we are going to discuss. But I'm already telling you because charter should be understood together. So if I say charter or what we call as the monopoly is lost, you will be able to understand that. Yes, sir. Okay, very good. Now, let's talk about 1793 Charter Act. And remember, this is the most confusing and in making. Can you explain Napoleon? Napoleon is now fighting in Europe. Trading has become very problematic. There is a continental system in which he is not allowing English to trade with anyone else. English traders cannot trade with anyone, but East India Company still has India. So the point is that the traders become desperate, and that is the basic point. So 1793 is the only one in which making the code is a little bit difficult, but the provisions are very interesting. But the provisions are very, very interesting. The structure Charter Act 1793 structure remains the same. If I write it like this, it will make sense to you. It will make sense to you if I write it like this in code. There's no issue. Hai? Now, the 1793 first major provision is a very significant one. It says after paying all salaries and expenditure in India, the East India Company should transfer 5 lakh pounds to the British Parliament. Think of it. A government is asking a body, the East India Company, to basically give them certain money out of the pool of money which they are getting in India. So they're asking for something in this loot. Ki hame bhi de do. We also want a piece of cake. Now, this is one of the ways in which direct drain is happening in that regard, because the East India Company now has to transfer 5 lakh pounds. That is a very, very big amount. £500,000 at that point of time is a very big amount. And this is, in a way, the British getting a revenue receipt without doing anything. Without doing anything. It has now also been said that the governors, all governors, can only be appointed by the crown. So they've not taken full control, but the ideas are the same. So you need the crown's assent. You need the crown's assent of crown for appointment. And one more interesting thing is, they said court of directors and board of control. Board of control has British parliamentary members. If they are British parliamentary members, who is giving the salary of British parliamentary member? Who will encash the salary of the British parliamentary members? It is the government. It is the government, right? The government gives, if I'm an MP, I will get it from the consolidated funds of India. Isn't it? I will get it from the consolidated funds of India. I will get money out of the Indian expenditure, which is the Indian Parliament paying everyone. But now the clause says, pay the BOC and COD members out of Indian revenue. Now you get it, what is home charges? They are basically saying that pay whatever is related to India should be paid by India itself. GGB means Governor General of Bengal. You read the provisions and you will be astonished at the rate at which they want to loot. 20 years privilege has been given. After paying necessary expenses, interest, dividend, salary, was to pay £5 lakh annually to the British government. The royal approval was mandated for appointment of Governor General, governors, and Commander-in-Chief. Senior officials of the company were debarred from leaving from their positions without the assent or the permission of the company itself. And yeah, in layman terms, it is basically this only, which is that if a high commissioner, the British high commissioner or British ambassador is paid out of Indian money, the company has empowered, and this is a very interesting point, the company has empowered the company privileges or company employees can give licenses to individuals to act like company agents. Basically, this East India Company can give a Indian trader a license to trade in East India Company name. This was needed for smuggling in China. And if that was not enough, the home government members were to be paid out of Indian revenue, which would continue till 1919. And if that is not enough, they have also the revenue administration was separated from judicial function, and this will lead to the the Mal Adalat, which is the customs adalat, to go away. But this is an insignificant point. What matters to us is this, and this. Home government would refer to BOC. Would refer to BOC. So in a way, if I had to make a code, for 1793 Charter Act, the code becomes 93 5 lakh pounds, 5 lakh pounds, all appointments on crown and all salary, Indian revenue. This is the problem of making this. It has too many words. But it has all the major provisions. 5 lakh pounds, all appointments by the crown, all salaries by Indian revenue. Are we clear about 1793? Then I'll give you a breather. No wonder they were over assessing during land revenue, because that is the point. That is the point. Perfect. So we come back at 6:45 and we'll take the story forward till 8 o'clock. Is it 6:45? Yeah, 6:45. Done. 13 is left, 1813, 1833. And then once this is over, I will consolidate it and then we'll introduce the concept of socialist reform movement. Perfect. Okay. Leave on the ये वाला, this on this. Okay. Charter this or this. Which one? Okay. See you. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. सर ब्रेक ले लो, विकेट गिर रहे हैं. You want, I can give you 12 minutes more. We can join at 7. Totally your call. Totally your call. We can join at 7. I need 1 hour. So I'll give it as a poll. Though it's not right, I know. But okay. I'm giving you 2 options. 15 seconds. A, we start now. Continue. Or B, we go to 7. Totally your call. I'm happy in both. So you all have yourself decided. Perfect. Now, we have to discuss the Charter Act of 1813. Now, when we talk about Charter Act of 1813, there are going to be multiple changes which will happen, and that will be quite significant, not for structure, but generally. So the structure remains the same, which is Court of Directors, Board of Control, the concept of what we call as GGB plus 3, and you have then 2 more, which is Governor of Madras and Governor of Bombay. This structure remains the same. But there will be a very interesting development. First, we already know that India monopoly will be gone. So India is gone, that everybody knows. We also know one more very, very, very important thing, which is that 1 lakh rupees will be allocated for education. Where have we studied this? Where have we studied this? Where have we seen this? Which chapter? Education. The whole Macaulay Minute issue, 1813, 1823, 1835. That has been allocated here. Thereafter, you have one more very important development, which is missionaries. For the first time in India are allowed by the British. By the British. This is a very significant development. This is a very significant development because now missionaries can come to India, and more significantly, this opens up for British-led. Understand this point. Previously, they were coming from Serampore. Previously, they were coming from the colonies which were close to the British, but not the British East India Company allowing anybody. So they could migrate, they could come from somewhere, but they were not allowed to operate from East India Company ships or in British territories itself. This is going to be very significant, and remember this point because missionary activities after 1813 will become actually quite accelerated. But the biggest and most important change will be that when the Governor General of Madras, Governor General of Bombay, and Governor General of Bengal, Bombay, Madras, and Bengal, when they now make laws or regulations, or he makes a law or regulation, previously, by them making the law itself, it was complete. However, now, no. Now, they have to send their laws to the British Parliament. And only when the British Parliament assents or gives permission or passes the bill, then it will come back to India as a law. Are you understanding the implications of this? Are you understanding the implications of this? This is extremely significant because now basically the British Parliament is passing laws and their assent is necessary. So if you look at it bit by bit, slowly, the British Parliament is taking power away from the Court of Directors also and the Board of Control also. So 1813 will be so significant because it has changed the structure itself. You see, 1813 says that the monopoly will still be there for the period of 20 years. It says that monopoly will be retained, but now the India monopoly has gone. India monopoly has gone. China remains. And see, in order to make sure that the East India Company still remains relevant as a company, they increase dividend. Previously, they used to give 5%. Now they'll give 10.5%. Now they'll give 10.5%. And if that is not enough, now the company is also told about something. It says that the company can retain the possessions of the territory and the revenue for 10 more years without prejudice of the sovereignty of the crown. Without the prejudice of the sovereignty of the crown. This is a very dangerous line because for the first time the British is saying that okay, you hold these territories, but you hold it in the name of the crown. The equivalent to it be that in your house there was a bike. Nobody was used to use it. You are using it. You started to go to college on it. You're using that scooty or bike for a very long time. But one day what happens is you are caught doing something illegal or you are misusing that scooty too much. So now what happens is that your father calls you and says, okay, you are using this bike. However, remember that that bike is mine. So, though you are allowed to use it, however, with the prejudice that I am the one who really owns it. So, in a way, they are asserting their power. And this is very, very dangerous that way. So, the East India Company will now start to become even more nervous because the first time they are saying that, okay, you hold it, but you hold it in the name of the British Crown. Now, further, 1 lakh pound will be set aside for literature. We already know. Missionaries will be allowed to act. Separate account to be kept for commercial transaction and territorial revenue. Basically, Court of Director and Board of Control should have now separate accounts in order to see if the Board of Control is not actually getting more, or the Court of Directors, what is the role of it. So they now want to see that the Court of Directors should have a separate account so the court that Board of Control revenue is not used by Court of Directors. If that is not enough, you see this provision. The regulations made by the councils of Madras, Bombay, Calcutta are now required to be laid before the British Parliament, and the constitutional provision of Indian territories has for the first time become very clear that the British Parliament wants to assert its power. So if you look at it, if I had to make a code for Government of India Act, no, not Government of India Act, Charter Act 1813, Charter Act 1813, it would be what? 13, India gone, China still there, 1 lakh for education, mission, missy, and legislative parliament. 13, because 1813, India, monopoly gone. China, monopoly retained. And 1 lakh for education, 1 lakh for education, missionaries, and legislative power with parliament. I'll give you a timeline in the end, don't worry, so that you can do it. So do we have any flowcharts for all the charter acts? So yes, I will make a big timeline for you. I will write everything in the same place. Don't worry about that. Right? Is 1813 clear, everybody? So it is like nationalization of East India Company. Niranjan, that would be a very big abuse you are giving to the East India Company. I like it, but in a way, yes. It is not nationalized. It is not nationalized because nationalization would mean that they take East India Company control, court of directors will be gone. But that is not the case. That is not the case. It's not nationalization. That would be too harsh on the East India Company. Thoda rehm dikhao. It is not that. It is just that India revenue, India concept should be properly now there. India. See, can you repeat separate COD? Now you see. See. COD, BOC. Their power, BOC is keeping on increasing. Now imagine that 500 million came from Board of Control. But Court of Directors only generated 550 million. But combined, it will be shown to 550 million. Now, more significantly, if the expenditure of Court of Director is 40 million and the expenditure here is also 40 million, then you tell me that is it justified how COD and BOC are there? Samita, you tell me. So what they are saying is separate. Show us the revenue of BOC different and the revenue of COD different, so that we can see if expenditure is justifying or not. Again, I am repeating all the provisions of 1813. 1813, first provision is that the India monopoly will be gone. 1 lakh rupiah has been given to the company to now spread education. Missionaries are saying for the first time you can come to India. But what is more significant is the fact that now laws have to go till the parliament. But they have said one more thing, which is that COD and BOC, their revenue should be separated. Rupiah, rupees, it is rupiah obviously. It should be separated. And by doing that, there will be more clarity what is actually happening at the level on the ground itself. Does this make sense, everyone? Does this make sense? Because if you fundamentally understand it, you will never ever forget it. And this is very significant for your preparation. Yes, sir. Clear, sir. Perfect. Now, the 1833 Act, Charter Act, now changes a major designational change will come, which is that you will have Board of Control, Court of Director, now a new designational change will happen wherein the Governor General of Bengal will be now called Governor General of India. Wherein bit by bit government is eating up. That is the basic point. Bit by bit it is. Imam, I hope I answered you. I didn't see your comment while writing. I hope, Imam, I answered you. Right? Doesn't conflict arise between company and government. As a Gokul, you tell me one thing. I am Tata company. Government is doing something. What will I do against that company? Can any private company do anything against the government? Perfect, Imam. Perfect. You can't do. अरे British, they will say charter क्यों लिया फिर? They will say then why did you take the charter? हम charter डाल लेते, you take it. But basically that is what is happening also in a way. See, Board of Control, Court of Directors, now the name has changed. And you have Governor of Bengal. No, not Bengal. Yes, Bengal. Governor of Madras and Governor of Bombay as three separate entities now. Three separate entities. Now, basically, there is a centralization of power here. He has his 3-member council. But the most significant aspect here is that the Governor General of Bengal, all power, administrative or fiscal or political, is concentrated in him. Everything will be done in his name. But there is one more major thing which happens. Tell me one thing. Previously, could the Governor of Bombay and Governor of Madras send the law straight to the British Parliament? Yes. You can see it here. They can send it directly. And maybe they will send it via someone, but they had a right to send it directly also. Basically, they still had the power to make laws. However, now that power will also be taken away. Governor of Bengal, Governor of Madras, and Governor of Bombay can only recommend and propose bills and laws, and the British Parliament can only receive laws or bills from Governor General of India. This is called deprivation of law-making power and further centralization. This is a significant bill because it is depriving the governors any power in that regard. So if you look at it, the 1833 Act, you read it, and I will consolidate everything, don't worry. 1833 Act, 20-year lease further, monopoly over China and tea trade also ended. All restrictions on European immigration and acquisition of property was gone, and Europeans could now buy property. This is very important. Europeans can buy property in India, and this would be the genesis of which system in Indigo? This would allow which system to develop in Indigo? Nij. Very good. Very, very good. So Nij can develop because now the European can have his own plantation. And this is the genesis of the tea plantations in Darjeeling or in West Bengal and Darjeeling sector. I will rather say Bengal presidency, not Darjeeling separately. In Bengal. Now they can have their tea plantations, their jute plantations, their coffee plantations in the Coorg sector. This is very significant. Further, fiscal, legislative, administrative centralization of the government, where the Governor General was given the power to superintend, control, direct civil, military affairs. So he's become the supreme power. If that was not enough, Bengal, Madras, Bombay, all territories were placed under the control of the Governor General. This is the point where now everything under. That is why his name is Governor General of India now. Crown rule will only come after 1857. You can see even before the crown rule came, the power has been diminished quite a lot. Thereafter, all revenues were to be raised under the authority of the Governor General, who were to be complete control over expenditure also. But the biggest point is GGI is like the Prime Minister. Yeah. The government of Madras, of Bombay were dramatically deprived of their legislative powers and left with the right to proposing to Governor General projects of laws. A law member was added to his council so that laws can be made. This is the biggest joke of the century which they wrote, which is then what powers were left with these two governors? Nothing. Administer. Nothing more, nothing less. Just administer. No real big power, only administration. Now, the point is, this is the biggest joke of that century. No Indian citizen was to be denied employment under the company on the basis of religion, color, birth, descent. Basically saying that this is the Article 15 and 16 of them. It's like the today's governor. That's true. And the Slavery Act was also passed but never implemented before 1843. Now, let me again consolidate for you the whole concept. 1833, you have 33, China gone, GGI, power is very high, legislative centralization. Further, I'll make 3 slides for you to consolidate everything. Legislative centralization, and Europeans can buy property. Other than this, the other provisions are only rhetorical. Does this make sense? 1833 is clear. 1833 is clear, everyone. Perfect. Now comes our last act, which is called the Charter Act. 1853. China gone, meaning China monopoly is gone 1833, obviously. 33 short form is 1833. You're asking me the most obvious thing. 33 short form would, this is the short form of 1833. 33 China GGI LC ABURO ABPRO. Are these codes helping? If you don't want to learn these codes, it is problematic. It is totally your call. If you don't buy, Europeans buy property. If you don't like it, if you hate it, I'm not forcing it upon you. I'm just telling you a way you can do it. I'm just telling you a way you can do it. Right? Okay, perfect. Now, Charter Act 1853. Under Charter Act of 1853, the Court of Directors are still there. The Board of Control is still there. The Governor General of India is still there. Governor General of India. And then you have the three governors. Governor of Bengal, Governor of Bombay, Governor of Madras. He reports to them, they report to him. Now, very significantly, now the council of the Governor General will change. Is the code easy way? It is totally your call. If you can remember the provisions, why not? Because later codes will not be possible. In the Government of India Acts or the Council Acts, there's no code possible itself. Too big acts. You have now two very important concepts. Legislative Council and Executive Council. Why are these? What is the difference between Executive Council and Legislative Council? What is the difference between Executive Council and Legislative Council? One would make laws. This will be lawmaking, and this would be executive power. So now, very significantly, these people will propose to Legislative Council, propose laws to Legislative Council. Legislative Council will then send the bill to the Governor General of India. The Governor General of India will send it to the British Parliament. And then the British Parliament will send it back to the Governor General. Do you understand the implications of this? Do you understand the implication of this? There is so much level of bill deliberation now. It is beyond exception, wherein you first send it to the Legislative Council that we want a bill for Madras. Then they will make a bill, they will propose a bill, then they will send it to the Governor General. The Governor General will send it to the British Parliament. The British Parliament will then enact it. And then the Governor General will send it to the Executive Council to execute it. This is how everything changed. This is how everything changed, and you can see there is now a full chain of command. There is now full chain of command. I'll make it separately. The concept is governors of Bombay, Bengal, and Madras send bill to Legislative Council. Legislative Council will send it to Governor General of India. Governor General will send it to British Parliament. The British Parliament will send it back to the Governor General of India. And then it will go to the Executive Council. Executive Council. So if you look at it, here it starts at proposing. Here it goes for codification. Here it goes as a bill. Here it is enacted. And then it is executed. Understand, and you need to understand the importance of this. You need to understand the importance of this. That they are now creating a proper structure of legislative power in India. Other than that, 1853, there will also be open competition. Open competition will be allowed in ICS. But the biggest provision, which was the biggest red flag, it did not specify for how long the charter was for. This is the biggest red flag for the East India Company. Unfortunately, what will happen is that the East India Company will very simply, in turn, through its policy, lead to the revolt of 1857. And the revolt of 1857 will lead to the British Parliament controlling directly through what we call today as the Government of India Act 1858. But if that was not done, the next act would have for sure made sure that they would have taken everything, because they were moving towards that only. So I'll read it out to you. You have strength of court of directors reduced to 18. That is not important. Patronage of service was dissolved. Okay. Which is basically open competition. Executive and legislative function, the government of India was separated. And local representation was introduced. Not there, but introduced. But what is more significant is that for the first time, they will continue unless the parliament says otherwise. So what I want to do is that I want to consolidate everything in one slide and discuss with you three things, which is legislative centralization. Over above that, all these acts in one slide. Can we do that? Yes? Is this making sense? You would have done it through Lakshmikant also. In your polity also you've done it. But we are doing from a different perspective here. Please understand this point. Our perspective is totally different. Can we say British Crow waited such a revolt on the basis it? No. Crown, it's not. Pradeep, the way things are, it seems that they would have automatically taken control. Yeah, we're doing from a historical perspective and how it changes the company control in India. Can I consolidate? Okay, now, first thing is the concept of legislative centralization. Starts in 1773, which is subordination of the governors of Madras and Bombay to Governor General of Bengal. But then next major blow is 1813 and then 1833. 1813, the governors have to send the bills or laws to the British Parliament for assent. So, independence gone. And then, last but not the least, is 1833, wherein the governor of Madras, Bengal, and Bombay can only propose bills to the Governor General of India. They cannot enact or even codify, only propose. So, if in the examination it says, tell us the concept of legislative centralization, you will be able to do that. You'll be able to do that. What is the concept of legislative centralization? In a way, this centralization is in the Governor General, and it starts in the Regulating Act, and by Charter Acts it starts to change. If this is clear, then I would want to give you the timeline. Yes. In 1773, was the independence of governor not exactly lost as they were subordinated? They may be subordinated, but at least they were able to make their own laws. Try to understand this point. They still had a way of doing it for themselves. You want, acha, we didn't make the code for 1853. 1853 would be 53 Executive Council, Legislative Council, and Open ICS. You can do that. Is legislative centralization help in more exploitation in India? Yes, because the more power you concentrate in the governance of India, that you have more, in a way, proper understanding of. See, if three governors are separate, then they are having their own perspective. Now there is a centralized power which has a pan India perspective of how exploitation should happen. Exploitation should happen. You can write legislative. No, there's no legislative centralization in 53. The process is now this. This is the process to get a bill passed. To get a bill passed and then executed. It's not something new. This was already there. But with the legislative council there, there's now one more step there. So if you make this, you already know it. So if I go with all the codes are what? 73 GGB plus 4 SCLC, 84 GGB plus 3 BOC COD. Then you have 93 5 lakh pound. This was the most weird one. 5 lakh pound. I'd want to keep it continuous. I don't want to change it. So I'm just looking at it. 5 lakh pound APC all sal Indian revenue. APC, All Sal Indian Revenue. APC, All Appointment Ground, All Sal India Revenue. Thereafter, we have 13 India gone, China there, mission 1 lakh rupiah, 1 lakh rupiah, and 1813 legislative centralization propose. Thereafter, you have 33 China, Governor General of India, power is very high. No, it was 13 is not proposed. It is Act to Parley. This is Governor propose GGI. Other than that, what did we make for 83? Anything else I added? 33. EB Pro, why same thing only. And Europeans can buy property. 1833. Europeans can buy property. Europeans buy property. And you have 53, which is 53 Legislative Council, Executive Council, Open ICS. I hope this makes sense and helps you generally. These are the 5 codes, right? Okay. Now I need a breather for my hand. 5 minutes. I am going to take a breather, and then I make the timeline, because it's my request that I need 5 minutes just for this hand, because I keep on writing, it will start to ache. So 5 minutes breather. I consolidate everything when I come back. Can I do that? Okay. I'll leave you here. You try to figure it out. Right? Okay. So we come back at 7:35. See you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Well, Tina, don't trust the UPSC people too much. Rather, I've given too much space in that side. Okay. Governor of Bengal becomes Governor General of Bengal. First such person was Hastings. Legislative centralization. Legislative centralization. Supreme Court 1774. Four-member council for the Governor General of Bengal. Then 1784 PITS. This is Regulating Act. PITS India Act. One member reduced in the Governor General Council. Board of Control created and has all powers other than commercial. So BOC COD. Thereafter, 1793, you have, after paying everything, 5 lakh pounds to the British Parliament, you have the BOC will be paid by Indian Revenue Thereafter, all appointments all appointments made by Crown and 20 years monopoly granted. 20 years monopoly granted. Thereafter, you have 1813. 1813, India monopoly gone. 20 years clause. Thereafter, governor will talk about 1 lakh rupiah for education, missionary allowed. The bills and laws proposed will go to British Parliament. Thereafter, 1833, China monopoly gone. 20 years clause. Governor General of Bengal is Governor General of India. That person was Bentinck, and the most important concept, the governors of Madras, Bombay, and Bengal can only propose bills to Governor General of India. Europeans can buy property. And 1853 is no 20 years clause. More importantly, Legislative Council and Executive Council open competition for ICS. Okay, this is basically all the constitutional development in one slide. So I guess this is also sorted. Anybody has any issue in any clause, discuss it here only. Anybody, anything? No, they don't become public servants, government servants, because they are still not reporting to the crown. In weekday batch, we also covered, yeah, exactly till this point. Can we show last slide 1813 charter? 1830, this 1830. Missionaries are allowed to India, yes. They're allowed to India under the 1813 charter. Perfect, Gulam. Nothing better. So see, now what we've done is we've done advent, we've done expansion, we've done also regional kingdoms, and we have basically right now done consolidation fully. Under consolidation, we had to see three things: education, constitutional development, and the most important, which is economic policy. 1813 Christianity will be allowed to spread. Is company monopoly end? No, not technically. Charter is still there. Now, what we have to start is called socio-religious reform. After this, you have tribal and peasant. After this, you have 1857. And thereafter, we have nationalism. So I'll stop here because I'll not start something which you have to remember for 5 days. I'll stop here. Socialist reform movement is something which we have to cover from next week. Next week, we'll start this. Most probably, we will enter nationalism by the time we come to this time next week. So thank you. Thank you for your patience on a match day to be here. And I will see you next week, Saturday, same time. We'll discuss socialist reform and tribal. And thereafter, 1857 and nationalism will be there on Sunday. So thank you. Take care. And let's pray that India wins the match. Right? Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. Take care.